From the crack of dawn to the campfire at night. Whether you're in the woods, on the water, or just dreaming about your next adventure, you're in the right place. This is Tailgate Outdoors.
All right, we're already halfway through the month of August here. Next week's a big week. Deer hunters, those antlerless tags going to be going on sale and such. So let's catch up with our good buddy, Mr. Jake Bolks, Conservation Warden for the great state of Wisconsin. Good morning, Jake. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Not bad, man. Not bad. Hey, because we were talking a little bit about, Bob was talking about he was down in Milwaukee this last weekend with the rain and the floods and such.
Oh, sure.
And we did have somebody who texted in a quick question. Now, I know it's not really kind of in your area and such, but somebody had texted in, what's up with the water levels? I'm 41, and this has probably been the rainiest summer I can ever remember. But we don't get rain for a little over a week, and the Chippewa River is as low as it's ever been. There are parts of the river exposed as I drive over the Main Street Bridge in Chippewa that I would never see exposed when I was a kid, and that was during a lot of the hotter, drier summers of the 90s and early 2000s. Did Excel or the Army Corps of Engineers change their practice? It's not good for fishing at all. That whole river system just continues to decline.
Yeah, so a lot in that one.
Yeah.
Basically, it's been a wet summer, but river levels are low. So the first thing you want to check in with is the dam operator upstream of whatever river it's at. So, at the end of the day, the DNR plays a little bit of a role in dams, but it's more for dam safety. I don't think we have any state-owned dams, and if they are, they're on a state property, and they're very minor, not creating hydroelectric power. We mostly deal with the safety portion. So I can't speak from experience on, talking with dam operators in my profession, but you definitely want to reach out to, Excel Energy if they're, the main controllers of it, or if it's one of the tribes up north. We're talking about the Chippewa here, so it runs up north through Ladysmith and up there. You want to check with any of those operators, and I'm sure if you go to their website or even gave them a call with general questions on it, they would answer it. But there are, without getting too sciencey on it, there are a lot of other different factors when it comes to rain events and river levels. You got to understand where the rain's falling and which way it's actually flowing, because there's tons of different watersheds, and it might seem like we're getting a lot of water that would flow through Eau Claire, but it could be flowing through the St. Croix, it could be going through the Red Cedar, it could be going through something east of us, the Black River, or further east. So you got to look at where the water totals are going and where it's flowing, as well as different things like, is it just one big rain event where it dumps 6 inches, the water goes up, goes down, and that's it. I've noticed the Chippewa this year in Eau Claire has been relatively low, so I don't disagree with the comment. However, whenever we have these rain events, it seems like the river will pump up for a day or two and then it goes right down to as low as it was before, if not further. So that's a contributing factor, is not having these sustained slower rain events. And also, again, not to get into too much science about it, but wetlands do a lot of work for us in controlling water levels and maintaining it and holding it and dumping it into the river slower, which maintain water levels. And there are a lot of wetlands that are in distress between just different habitat management and construction and building. And when you don't have that stuff to hold the water, it can flush it down sewer pipes and just flush it out of the system a lot quicker than it normally would. So there's a lot of contributing factors. I would start with, if you're curious on the dam, I would just Google the dam and see if they have an information line you can contact them with.
Good info there from Jake. Hey, appreciate that. Hey, before we get to some of the deer tags for next week, I saw this story. Cable, Wisconsin, the bear with the jug over its head. Did you hear? So my question to you is, how often do you run into situations like that? And if somebody sees something like that, whether it's a different type of animal with something, maybe stuck on them, is it to call the DNR? I know the Wildlife Service was also involved in this, but have you run into situations like that before?
Around here specifically, we haven't had too many animals that are in some sort of conundrum like that. Generally, I end up getting calls about people see a deer with a collar on it. So clearly someone tried to domesticate a deer at one point and then released it or what. I've dealt with a fair amount of those in my life, which is very illegal. Don't take a fawn and try to make it a pet. But you're right about the wildlife. At the end of the day, that would be like a wildlife department call, and the best thing to do is if you do see an animal like that you think is injured, orphaned, in some sort of distress, like obviously a bucket or container over its head. We have a wildlife hotline now. They call it the wildlife switchboard. It's a number that's monitored all week. It automatically goes to a voicemail because they disseminate it to the specific area that the call comes in with. But if you just Google DNR Wildlife Switchboard, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but the DNR Wildlife Switchboard, if you ever have any animal questions, concerns, issues, call that number, leave a message with your name, phone number, address, and just a brief description of what's going on. And there's someone that works there, listens to the voicemails, and then disseminates it to the local wildlife biologists and such. So that would be the best thing to do, is just call that wildlife switchboard number if you ever see or have questions with animals in that situation.
Jake, next week, big week. That's kind of like next week for me is when it kind of kicks in to get into hunting mode. Like it feels like it's coming when we get the antlerless tags available and such, and that begins Monday right away with the forest zones, northern and central. But maybe a good idea because you got a little bit of a change, right, with some of the areas and such. So if you're not familiar, or if anybody's not familiar, probably a good idea to check out the deer management zone and units now, right?
Yeah, the GMUs. So it's definitely something you want to take a look at before you jump on to get your bonus tag, because you're going to have to know specific numbers this year. Looking at the list here, August 18th, which should be Monday, right?
Yep.
That's the northern and central forest zone, so that primarily affects us in like Eau Claire County and up in Taylor, stuff like that. So you're definitely going to want to be ready right away Monday morning at 10 a.m. If you're hunting in one of those forest zones, you got to go onto a map and find your DMU. I moved to the state after everything was changed, so I'm not familiar with the historical value, but I think it's pretty similar to what it used to be. But go on there, find out where you're hunting, figure out what zone you're in or unit you're in, and then you'll have to go on there and select your bonus antler list, harvest authorization, or tag specific to that number. And it seems like, there's a fair amount of them with how they're dividing them up, especially on the private lands per usual. Private lands have a ton more than the publics, but they break it down pretty good. There are some DMUs that only have a couple hundred, and there's some that have up in the north that have over 1,000. So you definitely want to be ready right away Monday to try to get those tags.
Yeah, I remember the good old days because I still remember my units. It was either 26 or 24. It was always those numbers. And I know now it's kind of like 114 or 110. They're different numbers back in the day, but kind of similar too. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, like I said, I came here. I'm the old mud duck, trying to learn some of the history as I go through it. But no, that makes sense. So definitely, to your point there, then you can't rely on those numbers. So make sure to get in there this weekend, or at least Monday morning with a cup of coffee. Check out the map online. I Googled it while we're talking here, and it's very simple to find it on our website. Use the links, use the dates, and make sure, if you haven't bought one in a few years, it's really good just to read through this, because it answers some of the questions. Like if you're hunting MFL lands, it says right here, you must have a valid public land antlerless harvest. Some people I get questions on that because it's private land in a public, open to the public, and do I need private, do I need public? So it has good information here that might answer some of those questions that you have or don't even know you have until you read it.
And probably, Jake, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, Jake, I was going to ask, because when I started hunting years ago, you bought a tag and you hunted. Now
1800, they say.
Yeah, just about. But now you buy a tag, and I'm sitting here listening. I said, how in the world do you know if you're in the right place to hunt? I mean, you just have to go out in the woods and ask a landowner if you can hunt his land, or if it's public land, you go hunt. And now you got to be in a certain district with a certain tag. What's the philosophy behind that?
The reason for all these DMUs is actually public opinion. So this is what the public has wanted to go back to ever since they got rid of it back in the day. Mm-hmm. So the main purpose of these DMUs is to manage the deer population based off like the topography and habitat of these DMUs versus based off just a county line border. So a lot of the shape of these deer management units reflect the local, woods, agricultural fields, county land, private land, stuff like that, in a way that makes it easier to manage those units with the amount of doe tags they want to sell or they don't want to sell. It kind of gives the CDAX more power to control individual areas of counties versus just the county as a whole.
And I think, especially because these units are just for mostly, I shouldn't say all, but mostly the northern forest zone and a couple in the central one too. But correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, too, the last couple of years we started to hear a lot of hunters in the northern zone especially, because it was just all one big group. Well, there wasn't a lot of deer in the northern zone, so they were complaining there was too many tags up there. But you have some maybe in the southern part say, no, we got plenty. So that kind of broke it back up a little bit like this.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So some of those counties are so big or so long, north and south or east or west, or one part of it could be extremely dense woods with too many wolves, while the other is big agricultural with too many does. So instead of just lumping those two areas into one county, they've broken it into these DMUs that kind of goes along with that topography and gives more opportunity, to your point there, Dan, of either adding more doe tags or restricting more doe tags.
All right. Hey, really quick before I let you go, we had one more text coming in here. Can you duck hunt on the Chippewa River and the city limits, specifically Dell's Pond and north on the Chippewa?
Fall's definitely coming. I get that question a lot. That's why I know fall's coming. So it's a good question. I'm happy to always answer it. The first thing I'd have to say is that the state does not restrict it. So there's no state restrictions besides discharging within 100 feet, 100 yards, yada yada, all that kind of stuff. So it's not in my wheelhouse. If it's up to me, you're fine to hunt there, as long as you're following the state rules. But the question is, it's all within the city of Eau Claire, and there's an ordinance for discharging. So I talked with the city attorney's office 5-6 years ago, and the city attorney's office allows people to hunt Dell's Pond when they are on the actual islands out in the island, not on the shoreline or anything like that. You have to be out on those islands out there, shooting in a safe manner, hunting in a safe manner, hunting within all the DNR state regulations as well. As long as you hunt safe on those islands, the city's attorney's office has allowed it, but they mentioned that they have the authority to restrict it if they need be based off safety. So I always just tell everyone, you can do it, but just don't ruin it for everyone. Go out there, hunt legal, hunt safe. Don't make any dumb decisions. The best answer, I always say, is either the police department, but sometimes the police department sends them right back to the DNR because, they might not always be aware of the ordinance, their own ordinance, and who can enforce it. Because I can't enforce that ordinance, that discharge ordinance. So it's either talk to the police department or just call the city's attorney's office and just double check with them to make sure nothing's changed. But the last time I talked with the city attorney's office, they allow you to hunt on those islands, not from the shoreline, not anywhere else on the Chippewa within the city limits, but on those islands only.
So if I can't be, just to follow up and that, can I be in
Yeah.
can I be in my boat and shoot from it, or do I have to be on that island?
Well, you could be on your boat. There's not going to be any like open water
Right.
allow because of just like the 500-foot rule and everything on the Chippewa anyway. So you'd have to be within 3 feet. You'd have to follow all the regular rules, be within 3 feet of the shoreline or emergent vegetation, have
Gotcha.
50% of it covered, yada, yada. So you're going to be, on, near/on those islands.
Right.
So it's a really good question. I get it a lot. I totally love answering it. The caveat with it, just kind of like how we started off, and I hate kind of giving these because I don't want to be like that state guy that's always saying it's someone else's thing, but everyone's got their own jurisdiction. At the end of the day, it's a city ordinance, which can only be handled by the city or the police department, the Eau Claire Police Department, and at the end it's within the city, so it's kind of the city attorney's jurisdiction.
Good question there. I didn't know that either, too. So that's
Yeah.
kind of
No, it's a great question, and that's why I ran it down years and years ago because I get it so much. And even though it's not my wheelhouse, I want to try to help everyone and understand it as best we can because I don't want it to go away. I want everyone to be safe. I want everyone to have an opportunity. So I give the answer just with the caveat of understanding that it's not my actual decision. I'm just kind of the messenger in this.
Mm-hmm. Is duck hunting one of those tricky ones too? Because you got to be on the waterways or close to a waterway. If you don't, not all of us have private lakes or anything like that where they can. Is that one of the trickiest ones that you kind of run into, like where people can go hunting and such legally for ducks?
Duck hunting is like deer hunting, where there's a lot of like location is important.
Mm-hmm.
I think duck hunters, including myself, you generally default to the water because we all see ducks on the water. But I think any duck hunter would say it's more and more common to see people trying to shoot mallards out in the middle of a cut cornfield or soybean field or something like that. So I think there's opportunity anywhere for it. A lot of us love to get up early, get on a river, get on a lake, find a nook, set out some decoys, and blast ducks off the water, So it is and it isn't. There's opportunity in all of it, but it seems like water is a little bit more restrictive. Like there's usually houses around there. There's usually boats and other things going on. So I think it just gets a little bit more notoriety or visualization because it's right there where everyone is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's Jake Bolks, conservation warden for the great state of Wisconsin. Jake's going to be in studio here coming up in a couple weeks too, as we get closer to bow season and such too. So
Yes, sir.
Definitely getting that time of the year.
The questions are turning fallish, but I mean, you can tell. Like you said, bow season's coming.
Mm-hmm.
The first is the opener of the early teal season and goose season. It's almost here.
It
Crazy.
is, man.
Say it every year. We say it every year. I say it every year. Can't believe we're here, but here we are.
Yep, exactly. All right, dude. Hey, appreciate the time as always, buddy. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, you guys have a good one. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
You too. There you go. Jake Bolks, conservation warden for the great state of Wisconsin.